This is Civil Discourse Now. We're broadcasting, netcasting to you from Big Hat Books at 6510 Cornell, Indianapolis, Indiana. We're in the Broad Ripple section of Indianapolis. I'm Mark Small. I'm an attorney here in Indianapolis. My co-host, Paul Ogden. We're here with our guests, Jeff Cox, who's also an Indianapolis attorney, an historian, and also he has a blog, No Boxes Allowed. Our other guest today is Matt Stone, who's a Libertarian candidate for the City-County Council here in Marion County in Indianapolis. He also blogs on indystudent. Paul, do you want to talk about the show a little bit?
Well, the show is called Civil Discourse Now, and as you can tell by the name, or one can tell by the name, it is about civil discourse. Mark Small was the founder of the show, and he was of the belief, as I am, that there's not enough civil discussion out there about the issues. You got a lot of conflict on the air, a lot of people talking over each other. We're hoping for more of an intellectual presentation of the issues, and that's why we're here today.
And if we don't get an intellectual presentation of the issues, we'll just beat the crap out of each other. Our two topics today are going to be whether there is any value to higher education. That will be in the first two segments of the show. And the second two segments will be whether government should subsidize pro sports. These segments are 14 minutes long, so we'll be uploading to YouTube. And if you're at work, you can sneak them in that way and watch them and not have to worry about anything. Jeff, do you want to start off on whether there's value to higher education?
Well, sure. Thank you for turning that over to me, Mark. I do believe very strongly that there is a value in higher education. Now, it's come under increasing scrutiny today because college tuitions have gone up much faster than the rate of inflation, and students are often graduating from schools with 6 figures in debt, but with, in especially today's economy, limited job prospects. There's been a push for more of an emphasis on certain hard sciences and technical degrees, such as engineering, physics, chemistry, certain things that can direct you toward a specific technical career that is science-based. Those are now seen as the most likely ways to earn money and get a sustained income in the future after you graduate from college.
So it's all about money.
That's basically what it's about today, yes. That's what the philosophy is about today, at least the changing philosophy. At the college level, though, I have to say that not everyone is meant to be a science major. And there's been, not within the colleges themselves, but on the outside world, a certain, attack is a strong word, but I'll just say, just because it's the easiest thing to think of at the moment, attacking the humanities, saying that they teach too much in the way of humanities, they teach too much history, they teach too much literature, that those things don't really help you get a job in the real world. Maybe there's a certain amount of truth to that, but do we only want colleges to teach technical aspects?
We have indystudent on here, blogger Matt Stone as indystudent. What are you a student of?
Well, ironically, when I first started the blog, I was on the border of dropping out of college, and for most of the blog's time, I was not actually a college student. But when I dropped out of college and my job at my crappy cashiering job stopped giving me hours when the economic recession started really hitting, because there's people with families to feed, they gave hours priority to them. My dad got me this IT support job, and since he was going back into teaching at IPS, the plan was to get certification, because my dad's been working with computers ever since computers took up this entire room. But over the course of the next year and a half, I figured out that I was not really, even though I could do the computer, I could do virus scans, I could diagnose problems, I could rebuild computers, I wasn't really passionate about it. Yes, I could do it, but it was boring. But the initial plan was for me to go back to Ivy Tech and get a Microsoft certification or some type of IT certification, just do that. I mean, it's decent money, you set your own hours, you can do a lot of work from home, and during the evenings and weekends. It's a pretty good gig if you can be passionate and learn about it, but it wasn't really for me. So I went back into Ivy Tech just this semester, and I'm taking some communications courses and hope to go into radio broadcasting or some type of journalistic field. And I really agree with Jeff, not everyone's meant to be a scientist, or not even, or a plumber or anything hard like that. Not that these degrees, English or journalism or communication or anything like that, not that they necessarily pay amazingly, but...
well, let's back up a second. You're saying being a plumber is hard?
Well, people are always going to need toilets fixed. People are always going to need
I've
lights
worked
and
in
stuff like that.
Well, I think skilled trades are important as well. We're not talking engineers, we're talking plumbers, we're talking carpenters, we're talking electricians here. And there has been a de-emphasis of those in favor of college. And I don't know if that's necessarily healthy.
I agree with that.
For one thing, we always are going to need those skilled trades. You can't outsource plumbing to Asia. You can't outsource an electrician to Central America. But also, a lot of these skilled trades people can't do on their own. It takes a certain talent to do it. It takes certain training to do it. I don't think that the perception that these things are somehow less than college is healthy. It's not healthy for the economy. It's not healthy for people in general. And I don't think it's accurate either.
I think there are two different ways of looking at education. You have the liberal Mark Small way, and I'm guessing that what your view will be that education creates a more enlightened society, that people are more aware of issues, and it's good to have people educated, even if they don't do anything with that education. I take the more conservative, or I would say practical view, that the purpose of education is to go out and get a better job. And the problem we have now is that we have people going out, getting law degrees, getting MBAs, who find that extra education actually overqualifies you for positions. This past week I put on my blog, OgdenOnPolitics.com.
I apologize, Paul.
That's okay. The story about a attorney turned stripper who had worked for 9 years, and then she found she couldn't get a job in the legal profession. And she had to turn to stripping, and undoubtedly she probably had six-figure law school debt, which a lot of people have. So I think a lot of people go in and they automatically believe that they get higher education, they're going to have better job opportunities, and then they get out and they can't get a job and they have 5-6-figure debt.
Well, I do have a different view of education. My view of education is that it's more of a traditional liberal arts, which emphasis on liberal, I guess, liberal arts approach, which is that you go to school to learn about life and be a better person. There are certain things that you acquire in terms of life skills in college, particularly if you're...
How to drink.
Oh.
How to drink to excess.
If you are living in the community of scholars, if you're in a place where I went to a school in a small town in Greencastle, I went to DePauw. We were kind of isolated there because there wasn't a lot of interaction between students and townspeople unless you're going to one of the stores. And I learned a great deal, partying. We'd go to the bars with the professors. And sit there and talk about classes and talk about philosophy and talk about history. When we're sitting there at the bars, times that I went to class, the interactions were really important there too. I got a lot, and I gained a lot from the people my first year living in a dorm, then later living in a fraternity, talking to people. And you talk about the things you were studying in class. And for that, I got out of school, and I felt like I had become a human being. I knew a lot more about life, and I think that's important. I don't think that higher education is meant for everybody, but I think that ideally in this country, education provides an infrastructure. And generally, education is going to improve a person, the way in which they can think, the way in which they can problem solve, so that the person gets a really good quality high school education, and they arrive at the point, wherever that is, 16 or 17, where they have to determine what direction they want to go in life. They should be able to do that. And our country should pay for people to go through school as far as they can, if they're able to do so successfully. If that means medical school, if that means going for an MBA, if that means fine arts, whatever it is, we benefit as a society.
But I was 16 or 17 not too long ago, and I think people vastly overestimate the intelligence of, and I'll admit I was one of those 16 or 17 years. I thought I was going to be that some sort of major that I haven't even thought of in several years. I think it was Jeff that said earlier that there's an emphasis on trades, and I think that's something that we're kind of moving back to. If you look at the medical field, there's not really more doctors nowadays. In fact, in some fields there's shortages, but what there is more of a demand for, there's more demand for nurses, there's more demand for nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, physician's aides, and stuff like that. And pharmacists as well. It doesn't have the prestige of the doctor, but it has, and it's a lot of work, but it comes with a decent education. Not always a 4-year education. Some of these are 2-year degrees. Some of these you can get in a year and a half or so. And it's, hands-on work that you do with actual people and stuff that can't be outsourced. And I think that's kind of what we're moving to. And from what I read, from what my research has said on the internet, anyways, it seems like what other countries have been doing for several years. In Europe, I guess, after they get out of high school, they just say, hey, you want to do something? Yeah, here's this type of certification, here's this 1-year, 2-year degree, you go earn that, and then you go start working. And instead of this 4-year where you take some classes related to your major, some that aren't.
Yeah, but when I started college, I started college with the idea that I was going to major in political science and be a lawyer. I then decided that I wanted to hitchhike around the country. I wanted to lead student demonstrations. I always wanted to do that, watching TV when I was a teenager.
This is back in the 60s?
I started college in the early 70s, Paul.
Okay.
So,
I'm not touching that one.
Okay.
Not touching it.
But I was sure I wanted to be a political science major and become a lawyer. When I got out of school, I wrote poetry, I did stand-up comedy, I wrote short stories, I did a bunch of things. I chainsawed wood, I worked in construction, I worked in libraries. All these things that were kind of like a journey through life, but my higher education at DePaul, which was rather expensive, but fun, it really helped me in terms of like orienting myself to the world. I wasn't a human being when I went into college. I really wasn't formed as a person.
But one thing we probably should ask ourselves is if today colleges, as they are structured today, do help turn people into human beings, non-fully formed people mentally into human beings at the end of their college tenure. I remember when I went to Ohio State, the Ohio State University, I started out in civil engineering. I was going to design roads. And how about are we ready to take a break?
We're getting close. Talk fast.
Okay. I was in civil engineering for 2 years. It was a constant drumbeat. Physics, math, science, graphics, all those things. There was never a break from it. But there will be a break now.
Yeah, the thing was, the Ohio State student bulletin, they couldn't spell part of it. We'll be right back.